Sam Walton, made in America. Sam started one of the most successful companies in the world. He started from absolute scratch and continues to have incredible success to this day. This book study is not a chronological recording of his book, but rather a study of the principles that lead to his success at Walmart. In this book study, I will identify what the key success principles are that you can apply in your own business and in your own life. Principle number 1, learning to value a dollar. In the early years of Sam's life, he and his family were not financially well off. They were not living in poverty, but living on a farm with little revenue. It was the environment he grew up in which shaped his proactive approach to work and being able to generate an extra income for him and his family. To help and contribute to his family as his primary focus, Sam turned his hand to selling Marine magazine subscriptions, had several paperboy rounds, and sold rabbits and pigeons to earn extra income outside of school hours. Sam said, quote, "I learned from a very young age that it was important for us kids to help provide for the home, to be contributors, rather than just takers. In this process we learned how much hard work it took to get your hands on a dollar, and that when you did it was worth something. One thing my mother and dad shared completely was their approach to money. They just didn't spend it." End quote. Sam met a very important mentor at a young adult in his life. He was called L.S. Robson. He was a great salesperson and one of the most persuasive individuals Sam ever met. L.S. Robson influenced Sam a great deal as he was a success as a trader and a businessman. His knowledge of finance and the law, and his philosophy blew Sam away. This man's success to generate many dollars had a profound effect on what Sam would like to be as an adult. Sam says, "My competitive nature admired his success but not envy, and hoped that he could have the same success one day." So money contribution was a big factor to his family life. He saw people who had great success generating many dollars from running their own business, and Sam was inspired by that vision, and hoped that one day he could have the same level of success for himself. In so many of these stories they turn their disadvantage into an advantage. Sam turned his poor money environment into a strength by being proactive to look for ways in which to generate money outside of the conventional ways of working a paper round, which is what a typical well-off kid would have done. Principle number 2, starting on a dime. Sam was blessed with a very ambitious mother. She was extremely ambitious for her kids too. She read a lot and loved education. She went to college for a year, which was extremely rare in those days, before quitting to get married to Sam's father. Sam always took her mother seriously as she was a great motivator. Sam says, "She told me you should always try your best at whatever you take on. I always approached everything I was interested in with my true passion, some would say obsession, to win. I always set the bar high for myself and set extremely high personal goals from a young age." Sam says, "Looking back, it helps me realize that I have always had a strong bias towards action, a trait that has been part of the Walmart story." His mother had a huge influence on Sam as a youngster. The fact that she read a lot and had a love for education rubbed off on Sam, which would help him greatly. Learning and trying your best are two important key minces for success, which Sam got from a very young age. Even in college, when the Great Depression hit, Sam continued to do his newspapers, hiring a small team and turning it into a pretty good earning business. Sam says, "I made $4,000 a year, which was a significant amount of money back then." His paper round entailed Sam and his team selling newspapers to customers door to door. He was the best salesperson in the team at a young age. The more sales he made, the more money the newspaper round made, and he was like the chief performer in the whole team. Sam also waited tables in exchange for meals, and was the head lifeguard for the local swimming pool. However, after school and college, Sam left all of the smaller jobs and changed his focus to a full-time job. He was primarily skilled in sales, so he took an interest in insurance sales and retailers. At this time, Sam and his family happened to move beside a mentor who had built a chain of retail shops. Sam would ask him, "How did you do it, and how well was it working out for him?" Sam had a natural interest in retail shops and sales as a young adult. Sam got offered a job as a trainee manager for a retailer, which he took. He said he loved retail, and it had a natural connection to his interest in sales and earning money. Even as a trainee manager, he was going out his way to learn. He would go to 3 other competitors at lunch to study the competition. He loved retail and sales and looked up to the managers of his store, and was amazed by the money they were making. Unfortunately, Sam left the retail environment to join the army for a short spell. After being in the army, he left and decided to open his own department store, so him and his wife bought a small store. Sam's first store turned out to be a disaster. He said he learned the biggest lessons from lack of real-world knowledge and from studying the competition. This is a very important lesson. By studying the competition, you can learn so much. Most people see their competition as an enemy. However, Sam sees the competition as his best friend, his best teacher. By seeing your competition and seeing the best-selling products, you can get instant real-world feedback about what is working in the real world and what your products need to look like. Sam would read every retail publication and would ask a competitor and mentor, John Dunham, how to better his store. Looking at their products' prices, promotional displays, he was always trying to better his store. Sam was eager to learn, but also had a greater interest in his awareness of running a store. He wanted to know all of the account system. He wanted to know all of the details, nuts and bolts of the business. Later on, Sam started to test and experiment with his own sales and promoting. He would source direct manufacturers, rather than middlemen, to get a good wholesale price on products, then sell them cheap, and they would fly out the door. After working all day, he would then drive to a manufacturer to buy more products to sell the next day. He was just driven, determined, and would continue to experiment on a regular basis, and some of these tests worked wonders. One of the experiments was to add an ice cream and popcorn machine at the till, to boost sales at the till. He was obsessively pushing and pulling the status quo of the successful and standard retail store strategies. Sam says, "Our money was made by controlling the expenses of the business." After all of the success he had, he got swindled with the leases of his store, meaning he had to give it all up. He lost it all. He learned a cold hard lesson on how he should have paid closer attention to the least details of the store he rented. He had to start all over again and be even better this time, but he had gained great experience and success from his first store. Principle number 3, bouncing back and being adaptable. Sam famously said, "I love competition." This was Sam's attitude towards the competition of the day. How different is this compared to most people when they start a business venture? The competition gives you a benchmark or reference point to what is expected by customers, and an opportunity to do things better. Sam learned everything he did from his competition. He studied his competition all of the time, and used that to better his own business. Sam also tested and experimented to discover new ways to get more purchases. These experiments were not going to put his business into bad trouble if they did not work. Instead, they were easily fixable. Small experiments like buying a popcorn machine to boost sales would not put the company in financial trouble, but it could still generate extra revenue if the experiment paid off. At the time, Walmart was a variety store, and so were all the other stores, but new developments in retail were happening. Indoor shopping malls and discount stores started to emerge, which Sam needed to be aware of to keep his own business alive. Sam knew that discount stores would be the end of variety stores, so Sam gradually adapted his stores to keep up with consumers' demands on product prices. Sam would be looking out for new ideas and products that would give him an extra inch over his competitors. Sam tried to create his own hula hoops products, as he knew this would be a very popular product at the time. Any money that was made in one store was put into his second store. He wanted to continue to expand his stores, and would always reinvest his profits to grow the business. Reinvesting profits to continue the success of Walmart stores. Principle number 4, swimming upstream. Sam says, "After a lifetime of swimming upstream, I am convinced that one of the real secrets to Walmart's success has been this: many of our best opportunities were created out of necessity. The things we were forced to learn and do, because we started out underfinanced and undercapitalized. We were obsessive in keeping our business expenditures down and having lower prices than everybody else." Sam focused on low prices and customer satisfaction guaranteed. Sam was using his weakness as strengths. His operation was underfinanced, however. By focusing on low prices and customer satisfaction, his business was able to stay profitable over many years. Sam also recognized the relationship between a business and its customers. That low price and customer satisfaction was the primary drivers to running a business. Consumers kept coming back. Principle number 5, rolling out the formula. While other competitors were expanding out in major cities, Walmart wanted to spread out and then fill in, positioning his stores in all of the small towns between the major cities. Sam knew that some of his bigger competition stores had larger budgets that could afford the least prices for the major cities, so Sam saw opportunity to position his stores between the major cities to try and slipstream customers when traveling between major transportation links. Sam says, "The biggest factor to the success of Walmart is the customer service. If they can't find the same product cheaper, and they have an enjoyable experience in store every time, then they will always return on a long-term basis." The staff management system in Walmart was to appreciate his staff and encourage them. By treating his staff with respect, they in turn will treat their customers with the same respect. If the workers were treated with little respect, then this would spill over in the customer service through the energy of the workers, and would affect the business and customer relationship. Principle number 6, making the customer number 1. Sam says, "The secret of successful retailing is to give your customer what you want. From your customer point of view, they want everything." When Walmart started in the small towns, they understood their customer. They offered low prices, a pleasant customer experience, and opening hours were when it best suited the customer. This approach alone put a new store into a better position than some of the more established stores that may take their customers for granted. Sam says, "The whole thing is driven by the customer, who is free to choose where they shop." When small shops try to compete with larger established shops, this usually is very challenging. Instead, when Walmart was a small shop, they simply put their energy in providing a tailored customer experience, getting to know the customer on a personal level to build long-lasting relationships to keep them coming back, letting the customer know that you appreciate them, value them, offering a personal touch to each customer. You develop a uniqueness within your niche. How can you apply this in your own life? If you're offering a product or service, try to go that extra mile by offering something extra. Sam says, survivors have to adapt to changing conditions. Business is a competitive endeavor, and job security lasts solely as long as the customer is satisfied. Nobody owes anybody else a living. In any business, the customer is your boss. The customer comes ahead of everything else. Principle number 7, meeting the competition. Sam says, we decided that instead of avoiding our competitors, or waiting for them to come to us, we would meet them head on. It erases any doubts that spirited competition is good for business and the customer. Our competitors have sharpened and honed us to an edge we wouldn't have found without them. We wouldn't have been as good as we are today without competing against our competitors. Walmart even ran a customer questionnaire in one of the towns. They asked their customers what they really thought and what they would like changed. Walmart responses immediately and made their changes to be more competitive. In the 80s, Sam went traveling around Europe and South America to see what stores were being offered to people and to see if he could learn anything new. Sam famously spent a night in a Brazilian jail because he was arrested for acting suspiciously in one store in Brazil. Sam was on the floor, measuring the distance between a display unit to the floor, doing all these what was regarded as strange behavior back then, studying the competition to learn and get extra edge. Sam learned a lot and came back home with a hypermart concept store in Europe. Sam says, competition is actually the real reason I love retailing. Competition is the catalyst for competitors to become better. Principle number 8, thinking small. Sam says, the bigger Walmart gets, the more essential it is that we think small, because that's exactly how we became a huge corporation. Here are the 3 of the most important ways Walmart tries to think small. Number 1, think one store at a time. Thinking one store at a time allows you to analyze lessons learned from individual stores. If sales for beach towels are selling really well in one Sunshine State, then that lesson can be applied to the other Walmart stores in sunny locations. Number 2, keep your ear to the ground. Walmart has their own fleet of private planes that allow the regional managers to fly direct to the stores. Instead of relying on computer stats and figures, managers want to get on the ground and find out what's working and what's not working at each store. If any key insights are learned, then it makes the journey worthwhile to better Walmart. More importantly, when all of the regional managers meet up, they will understand why certain computer stats and figures are down, because they investigated on the ground, and not staring at a computer screen. If competitors are beating Walmart on women's clothing, then the regional managers can visit the competitor's store and compare the promotions display and differences. This information feeds back along the communication line to district managers that make changes to better this area of the store. Number 3, push responsibly and authority down. Walmart made a clear statement to be open towards all of their employees. By being secretive about store changes or sales means the lower-ranked workers simply go through the motions on a day-to-day basis. For a short period of time, Walmart made their department supervisors their own managers for their department. They get hold all of the freight, wholesale and retail costs, and they are responsible for running that department like it's their own. Getting them to care about their job and their customer instead of going through the motions to the end of their shift. Principle number 9, the 10 rules for running a successful company. Rule 1, commit. Sam says, fully commit to your business, believe in it more than anybody else. I think I overcame every single one of my personal shortcomings by the sheer passion I brought to my work. If you love your work, you'll be out there every day to do your best you can. Rule 2, share. Sam says, share your profits with all of your associates and treat them as partners. In turn, they will treat you as their partner, and together you will all perform beyond your wildest expectations. Encourage your partners to hold a stake in the company, offer them discounted stock. It's the best thing we ever did. Treating your workers as somebody of value is what Walmart done. By making them feel important and valued, they then perform their jobs in a dedicated manner versus going through the motions. Rule 3, motivate. Sam says, motivate your team members. Money and ownership alone aren't enough. On a day-to-day basis, think of new and more interesting ways to motivate and challenge your partners. Encourage competition in goal setting and keep score. Keep things fresh with payoffs and challenge people to switch departments or roles. Rule 4, communication. Communicate everything with your partners. The more they know, the more they understand and care. Information is power, and the gain you get from empowering your partners can spark new ideas for growth. Rule 5, appreciate. Sam says, appreciate everything your partners do for your business. A paycheck or reward will buy one kind of loyalty, but all of us crave a deeper emotional reward, which is that of being really appreciated from a person. Somebody sitting another down and taking the time to really appreciate their work is far more powerful than a bonus. Rule 6, celebrate. Sam says, celebrate your success, find some humor in your failures. Don't take yourself so seriously. Loosen up and everybody around you will loosen up. Rule 7, listen. Listen to everyone in your company. The workers on the front line are the ones who actually talk to the customer. You better find out what they know about the customers as they interact with on a regular basis. You must listen to what your associates are trying to tell you. Rule 8, exceed. Sam says, exceed your customers' expectations. If you do, they will always back over and over again. Give them what they want and a little more. The 2 most important words I ever wrote were on that first Walmart sign, satisfaction guaranteed. Rule 9, control. Control your expenses better than your competition. This is where you can always find a competitive advantage. You can have a brilliant product, but if your expenses eat up the profits, then you will go bust. Rule 10. Swim upstream. This is the path of most resistance, and the most emotionally challenging path. Following the status quo is the opposite. So if 9 over 10 stores just have their ads in the local newspaper to attract customers, then you have to go out of your way to get your advert in front of your customer elsewhere. It's about putting in that extra effort to get an extra edge over the competitor. Swimming upstream is swimming against the current. It's harder, but you find new market niches further up the stream that your competitors do not find, giving you that competitive edge. Principle number 10. Conclusion. Sam says, those companies out there who aren't thinking about the customer interests are just going to get lost in the shuffle. The next time someone opens a brand new store in your local town or an online shop, before you write them off, go and check that store out first. See what they have to offer, see how they treat their customers, and see if the experience is going to make customers want to come back. This is really what business is all about. The shopkeeper's success is entirely up to the customer, and only the customers that keep coming back time and time again.